Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to be looking at The Book of Ants, a comic book written by Darren Aronofsky and illustrated by Edward Ross Flynn. Beautifully, I might add, as you can tell by this cover. Edward Ross Flynn, I don't think he did many comics. I think he was like a graphic designer or something. But he does this beautiful scratchboard style, kind of perfect for the story. If you're not familiar with this comic, this is almost not a sequel or a prequel, but just like a kind of an interpretation of the movie Pi, the movie directed by Darren Aronofsky. This comic was published by Artisan Entertainment, the film company that put out Pi, and they actually published this comic. It was distributed by Dark Horse, but it was their label. So I don't know. I think they did comics in partnership with Oni later on, like that Ghost Dog comic. There was a Blair Witch comic, I think that was part of that deal too. But this is just them publishing this. And it's interesting that it came out right as the movie was being released. So it was almost like a premium or an advertisement for the movie. Or, I'm sorry, I should say promotional item. Let's crack this open. So it's based on the movie Pi. And, sorry, I just said that. Okay, so we start off with the protagonist here. And he's a mathematician. And when he was a little boy, against his mother's wishes, he stared into the sun. He wanted to see what would happen. He almost went blind. Luckily, his eyesight came back, but ever since then, he's had horrible migraines. So this guy's kind of tortured. And they have this interesting thing here. I don't think I like it, where there's all these like diagrams and ants behind every page. I'm sorry, in the borders of every page, I should say. And, you know, mathematical equations. We see the Kabbalah here. And I don't know, it's a little distracting. It's weird that something so little should bother me, but I don't like it. But man, this art, I really like this guy's drawing style. So we see him he takes pills every day for his migraines. And he's pretty much in pain every day. One day he notices some ants scrambling around his computer cords. And he crushes it. Crushes a bunch of them. These ants are way too big. That's one, I gotta criticize the art in that respect. They're ridiculously big. So this was something from the movie that was really interesting. To be honest, I haven't seen the movie probably since it came out. I saw it in theaters, I remember, when it came out. And it almost had this like cyberpunk edge to it. Because it's like, his computer was like this. It was this insane, bizarre, almost like modern art thing that he cobbled together. Because he's not a rich guy, but he like goes to junkyards and he's such a genius. He kind of built his own computer. I really like this spread. Really nice 2-page spread. So basically, believes that math can explain everything in nature. Mathematics is the language of nature. And if you graph numbers, every number, patterns emerge. So what his big project is, he figures he can figure out the stock market. Because the stock market, after all, is just as he says, a universe of numbers that represent the global economy. And he's on the verge of a breakthrough, where he almost thinks that he can have this equation that'll figure out the stock market. Because like everything in nature, there's patterns. Once again, love this this line work here, the scratch board. Kind of see like Joe Coleman in it, even though Joe Coleman doesn't use this technique. He's kind of a social misfit, this guy. He, when he leaves the house, he has to look out the peephole, make sure no one's in the hallway. He's kind of a freak. But there's this little girl, a neighbor, and she's fascinated by his mathematical acumen. She always, it's a little game for her to be like, let's do one, Max. What's 322 times 491? Of course, he just like instantly knows it. He's a human calculator. And she just thinks it's amazing. She keeps wanting to test him. This art looks so good to me. I guess this guy like was in the Village Voice and stuff. And you just like all those like Franz Mazzarella and Lind Ward, his style is he does political cartoons too, for kind of radical political journals. It's I'm always so fascinated by that, how a certain style of art is always associated with leftist politics. Almost all the guys who draw like this are usually, you know, at least progressive, politically. We see him at the dump scavenging parts of computers. He's like a one-man free geek. And when he gets back home, his neighbor, she's this beautiful woman. And she's really nice. And I think she worries about Max. That's his name. He's, because he looks like a kid who can't take care of himself. He's always disheveled. He doesn't eat well. And she's kind of like, almost like has a sisterly affection for him. Like, you gotta take care of yourself, Max. But all he can think about is her beautiful body and her breasts. And he kind of has this fantasy, a little reveille in his head, where he seduces her and they make love. But then in this fantasy, it turns into a nightmare, and she turns into a giant ant. That's a great, horrifying image there. Man, I want to see more of this guy's art. It's really good. And for someone who's never done a comic, as far as I know, he didn't do like sequential art. He did cartoons and stuff. Pretty good storytelling. Seems like he has a good grasp on the form. But I'm even if he didn't, this art just looks so good. She even gives him some of her mom's samosas because she knows he's so doesn't take care of himself. So I guess the whole time there's these like brokerage firms and banking concerns calling him. People know about Max's research, and they think he's onto something. So they're constantly calling him, and he's always just like, I'm not interested in your money, leave me alone. Look at this here when he slams the phone. It's like the phone bends backwards. Because it's just trying to be expressive, because it looks wrong. So he goes to a diner one day, and he's checking out the Wall Street Journal, seeing if his predictions are right, if his equation is working. And it's getting close. It's not quite there, but he's like, oh yeah, that's close to my predictions, And this old guy sitting next to him, obnoxiously smoking a pipe. It's kind of bothering Max. But it turns out to be a friendly guy. He introduces himself. He says his name's Lenny Myers. He sees that Max is a mathematician. And he says, oh, I am too. Except I work with the Kabbalah. So he's, I don't know if he's a rabbi, but he's heavily into, Judaism and specifically Kabbalah. And he kind of explains it to Max. That kind of Kabbalah stuff, like the word for the Garden of Eden in Hebrew is this, and it has this many letters, and if you multiply this, blah, 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 blah. And as he's talking to him, Max realizes that all the numbers he's spouting off, they're all Fibonacci numbers. And the Jewish Lenny, he says, hey, I never noticed that before. You're right. They are Fibonacci numbers. So Max just books out of there. He runs home, and he takes a Wall Street Journal, the the business pages, and he maps out the Fibonacci numbers onto the stock quotes, and it makes a golden spiral. The shape that Pythagoras loved. He even cuts it out and makes it's like he's making a Mobius strip out of it. So this is the breakthrough he's been waiting for. He calls his computer Euclid. He even has a name for it. And he punches in all the data, and he hopes that Euclid will process and find and search for this pattern. And then I guess he overloads his computer. The computer explodes. And he gets out a fire extinguisher and a flashlight, and he's trying to, figure out what went wrong. And before it crashes, I guess it does spit out some information, but it seems like gibberish, sorry. Picking stocks that have never been under 20 in like 10 years, and it's saying, oh, they're going to be 6.5. And then just literally pure gibberish. So he's like, ah, shit. And then when he looks inside, he sees those giant ants again. And when he reaches in the computer, there's this like goo, some kind of viscous, gooey crap. I gotta see the movie again, because I can't remember why that would be there. I don't think ants would make that. He runs up, he climbs the ladder up to the motherboard on top, and it's just totally messed up with this goo. And he smashes the computer, the motherboard, with a chair. He's so angry. And then this ending's kind of nebulous. He sees another ant, and of course he's going to crush it. And then he looks at it, and he doesn't kill it. And he's just staring at it with this look of concern on his face. And then he says, no, to the heavens, that classic movie shot. And it says, 5 o'clock, personal note, nothing. There is no pattern. All chaos. The end, with a question mark. So I guess a lot of these answers will be in the movie. We have bios of the artist and the writer. And there's a little back cover. There was something back here I wanted to read. They basically say that scenes have been added, characters have been altered, dialogue has been reshaped. So it's almost like a weird interpretation of the movie, even though it's by the writer of the movie. I haven't seen the movie, like I said, in all that time, so I can't remember what's different, what's not. But either way, even if you've never seen the movie, this is a pretty interesting comic. I love the idea of that. That was kind of the hook of the movie Pi. It was very kind of interestingly directed, very kind of early David Lynch. It kind of looked like Eraserhead because it was cheap. It was filmed with barely any money. It was basically the ideas behind it. The whole idea of, math being not only something that could predict the stock market, almost like a magic scrying mirror of clairvoyance, but it was also has this mystical side through the Kabbalah. And so this captures that, at least, the basic core ideas. But to be honest, the real reason for this comic is the fucking art. Like, every page is a stunner. This is some really nice stuff. Really like this guy's style. And so that's it, guys, for the Book of Ants. I bet you could find this pretty damn cheap. I don't think anyone cares about this comic. I think it was in quarter bins, 3 months after it came out. But it shouldn't be. It's worth a lot to me. So I hope you guys enjoyed looking at it, and I hope to see you next time here at the Herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.